how do you analyze and elevate the important data, and how can you kind of convey the trends and risk profiles that you're seeing in here to the highest level, and then also being able to get buy-in from the rest of the employees to understand that things are changing and that we have the proof and we need to now put it into action. It's one thing to be able to get data, it's another thing to implement it.
Yes, yes. So it goes back to education, right? Like you need to have a pretty strong pipeline of communication out to your employees. Again, understanding kind of their education level in this topic,
Mhm.
but it I think it starts really with the organization having a strong data classification effort underway to understand the different buckets of information that it handles and whether there is external law governing it,
Mhm.
wherever that law may be, in whatever jurisdiction of the world that the business operates in, or it is something that is contractually mandated by a customer of yours or a
Mhm.
supplier of yours, a contract manufacturer, for example, or something that maybe just simply, I don't want to say simply a trade secret of your own, but it's the onus is really on the organization to protect that asset. But to help your employees, and for that matter, any third parties that you routinely work with, to understand that tier of classification, right? Because there's just this vast wasteland of data, right? Not
Mhm.
all of it is absolutely critical, but you've got to start somewhere. And so, what is that pecking order of the data? And from the highest levels, what let's just take personal information. What attributes are you tracking? And where does that information reside in the organization? And where does it flow, including outside of the organization and perhaps back to you?
Mhm.
Um, and as you do that, it behooves an organization to begin to calculate the value of that information. It can be done in several different ways. But believe me, there's a street value of that data, right? Certainly on the dark web, there's a value associated with the data. But to have perhaps your finance organization help calculate how much did it cost for you to gather that information, especially if it was something that came from the outside. How much does it cost for you to protect that information? What sort of future revenue streams might be lost if that information were gone? There's a number of ways that you can calculate it, and frankly, our kind of accounting systems aren't necessarily keeping up because there's in some respects from a regulatory accounting perspective, we don't have to track that information or convey that information publicly to
Mhm.
stakeholders, which is really strange to me, but that would give you an idea of the value of the information and then therefore kind
Mhm.
of the effort and the pecking order that you need to put toward protecting it.
Because I would think that this would really go right to Oren's experience when you're in the military and trying to explain this risk to the highest echelons of the obviously the service and then the political sphere. How do you sort through this, and how can you tell them that although the data could be coming from third party sources, we still need to heed the advice and then change our policy to be able to adapt to that risk?
So, well, in the military, we solved it very easily. It started also when the data was papers and written letters, and this is the classification method. So you have kind of non-classified documents. And then you have some classified, and you have different classifications like secret, top secret, and whatever the classification is, it dictates the level of protection that you need to provide to this document or to this source. And when it moves from paper to data, we did the same thing. Namely, we also said, okay, we need to provide classification for every email and for every data and piece of data that's getting into the network. And then we can treat this and we can impose a different policy based on the classification. So in critical infrastructure, they're trying to do something similar when they said, okay, we don't have like top secret or this kind of classification, but we have what we call, let's say, sensitive data. So if you look at utilities company, if you look at electricity companies, so probably the data that command all the power plants, it's I would consider it sensitive, because if someone get into it and put New York in dark, so I think
Hmm.
it's really sensitive. Or if you want to a water company and look at the data that control the pumps, so I think this is sensitive, and in this way you can find and define what is the sensitive data in critical infrastructure. Once you were able to define the data, and once you were able to define the assets and the level of sensitivity and classification, then you can set policies, and you can set of rules in order to protect them. And of course, and that's how they started with the kind of isolation for the OT network. The OT network usually take care of the sensitive data. All the sensitive data, whether it's a manufacturing plant of Coca-Cola or any car manufacturing, which a lot of secrets down there,
Mhm.
or it's a power plant or any other oil and gas. So all this define the sensitive data. Uh, all this segment is called the ICS, the industrial control systems. That really what characterize them. It's they all have a segment of sensitive data. Once you have this and you define it, then you need to know how to protect it from complete isolation that you said. Complete as I won't allow any data to get into it, to other, that you can share data, you can insert data, and you can have all other set of rules that you would like to have and to impose on your company. But definitely the data now uh, is, I mean, is big data. It's not data. It's because what we can do without the data. I mean, we are we the world relies on the data, and our mission is how to protect the sensitive data out of all these ocean of data.